Oh, I left the little thing up there. Hang on a second. Stand by. We're here. We're just hidden behind it.
Hi.
Good afternoon-ish, depending on where you are, and welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Bill Marchiony over on this side. There's Carol Lawrence over on that side. And you're witnessing / participating in the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-show. We're going to talk for a little bit before we start recording the next week's episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. Thank you for joining us on New Thought Media Network. You are welcome to make a comment in the chat or comments on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching. If you're watching the recording of this, and I'm told a lot of people like seeing the recording, I think it's because they can play us at 1.5 speed, and it makes our ideas quicker. If you do that, then what you want to do is to make the same sort of comment, you can go to the website, bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and go to the podcast section. There's a button where you can submit the same sort of a comment or inquiry or suggestion or request, and then we will be able to respond accordingly. And I'll let you talk for a second because, as you know, I got myself frothed up getting ready for the podcast today.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, I hadn't noticed.
Okay, maybe I'm just calm even when I'm frothy.
No, it's. I know you like waiting. You know, it's so good when you have a subject like that. You know, but let me just tell you this real quick. How much time we got? Like, we got a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
we can start recording the actual podcast episode anytime we want.
Okay, so this is so funny. I was going to call you or text you this week because you know I've been doing some stuff with sound and getting it all straight and blah blah blah. So I got this bright idea. Like I said, I'll switch offices with my husband because down where I am, he was so sweet. He gave me the largest space with the most sun coming in. Is really great. Except I don't need the sun when I'm recording during the day, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm on the front where the cars are going. I said, I know what? I'll switch offices with him because he loves the sun. He doesn't record, so he's not worried about the traffic. And so it sounded like a great idea. So I went in, to the other room and I'm like mapping it out in my mind and I kept hearing something. What is it? Well, back here I won't have to worry about the lawnmower. The guy who bought the condo downstairs has these fabulous wind chimes that go off all the time. So, I mean, they're nice, and they aren't cheapies. He must have spent a fortune on them because they light the whole neighborhood up. So I'm thinking, Steve on one hand with the lawnmower, who probably will maybe stop at some point and go somewhere else, or the wind chimes that are going on 100% of the time.
Gotcha, especially a day like today when it's windy.
Yes, and I'm down here at my end of the house thinking, are those chimes going to come down here? Anyway, I just thought you'd get a kick out of it because you know how I've been dealing with outside sounds, and I thought I had the answer, but I didn't know the guy was going to buy wind chimes.
As the great philosopher Rosanna used to say, it's always something.
It's always something.
I've been doing these daily meditations on Zoom for like 12 times a week for 4 years now. We're actually on the 4th anniversary this week of when we started doing them. And we started doing them lately on Insight Timer. So basically we start at 8 o'clock in the morning and then 3 minutes after 8 we add the people on Insight Timer so that we can share it with a broader audience. And it's kind of similar to this because it's not interactive with the people who are on Insight Timer. They can type into the chat, but the people who are on Zoom can talk. And somebody who's listening on Insight Timer said, there's a lot of background noise. I'm thinking, it's exactly the same background. Oh, wait a second. Listening on an iPhone, and because of the way the speaker on an iPhone, when it gets quiet, it turns the volume up. Oh. And we're doing the thing in the silence. And they're hearing the air conditioner and they're hearing my dog like over the other side of the room playing with his tennis ball, and it all just comes out loud and clear. So like 4 years in, I'm learning new stuff about this. Go figure.
It's always something. Yeah.
It's always something. It's always something. So, and there's something to talk about in New Thought circles this week as we do the Practical Prayer podcast. And let's get started with the episode so that we can include that the whole setup of it when we get into the episode, and then we can get all frothy together.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. How you doing, everybody?
I am doing well, and New Thought got a little boost in fame over the weekend, and we get to talk about that on March 9th, which was Saturday, March 9th. There was an opinion piece in the New York Times about, and it name-dropped New Thought. You think, well, that's interesting. It's got New Thought. It's got like part of the history of New Thought and some of the famous people from New Thought, including Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, who is the guy who originally did the empirical work to say, hey, this practice works. And also Charles Fillmore, who is the founder of Unity, which is one of the larger New Thought organizations. But the piece is actually a slam on manifesting. And manifesting always goes in quotes. The technique of people manifesting stuff. And before that, it was self-help affirmations, which you also put in quotes. And it was talking about the problems with that. And it was, on the one hand, wonderful to have New Thought described in the New York Times. And on the other hand, by conflating New Thought and manifesting, which is only a little tiny piece of it, and then slamming it, it's like, in my opinion, it's like talking about the problems with clergy sexual abuse, and then going into a detailed history of the Catholic Church. It's like, okay, they're related, but that's not the same story. There's the Catholic Church is about a lot more than just that little piece of it, or Christianity in general. You go over the life and times of Jesus, but I don't think that it's necessarily connected. So anyway, that's got me frothy.
Well, I figured when I read, when it came through on my phone, so I don't have it word for word in my head as you do, but I read enough, and I read through the whole thing, and I thought, okay, all right, Bill's not going to be real happy with this, and I'm trying to think, well, how do I feel about it? And perhaps we were annoyed for different reasons. I don't know. I'll tell you what annoyed me about the article. It talked about manifesting the way so many people talk about it in such a very superficial way. Mm-hmm. And that just, that makes me go to the roof, because I'm a teacher. You don't teach it's like going 2 inches deep and 10 miles wide. You're just spreading the stuff, but you're not giving details. You're not giving any understanding of it and what does it exactly mean. And there's pieces that go into it. I was really annoyed, I think, because I had heard the slam before. That's what I call it, the slam before. It's just like we are very mindless people, shallow people who say a bunch of affirmations and sit down and wait for things to happen. I was offended and insulted by that, but it's not a new thing, So I thought, when we talked, I said, well, we'll get to straighten that out. with whatever it is you want to straighten out on this thing. So
Right.
go for it.
And the thing that makes this new is not that it's new, in the same way that new thought isn't new. New thought is a practice and a technique and a creative process that's been in operation since there was thought. What makes this new is the New York Times giving voice to 2 inches deep and 10 miles wide, as you describe. And we're on episode number 144. We're getting to the wholesale level of episodes on the Practical Prayer Podcast. This is 12 dozen that we've done so far. And we talk about this a fair amount of time. That affirmations and with manifesting stuff is basically claiming it and then manifesting it. So affirmations are the thing that you do, and manifestation is the thing that you get. And it works. It absolutely works. There's no question that it works. And it's just a little tiny piece of the equation. There's a reason that it works, and that's what New Thought is. The reason that it works is because there's a New Thought principle that underlies it. And as we talk about, it's not done as you say or as you affirm. It is done as you believe. So if we make a claim that's within our belief system, the law responds. The creative law responds, and it brings that into being. And that's what manifesting or affirmations are all about. And it works. And that's the 2 inches deep that you're talking about. If you're claiming something that you completely believe that you can have, then you can have it. But the real growth part happens when you claim something that for some reason you don't really believe that you can have. And then there's some work to be done. And that's where New Thought kicks in, and that's where all the rest of them stop. You sit there whining, well, God didn't want me to have it, or I didn't change my mind strongly enough, or I don't have the right willpower, or, whatever self-blame is going to go on for, not getting the experience that we say that we want to get.
I think it goes to me back to the idea of being a co-creator of your own reality. And when I first heard that, I thought, okay, that's a very poetic sounding phrase.
Yeah.
But, however, I think it's a really profound thing once you really take it apart. The universe has a part, I have a part. And if I don't do my part, it's not going to happen, right? So you could say, well, I don't do my part because I don't believe and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes people don't even understand what their part is. That's where the affirmations kicked in for me. You can say all day and all night that you affirm that this is going to happen, but something happens in you that causes you to do your part. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm telling you this because from the other side of the street in the traditional church, I know how to teach prayer, but I also know that we didn't teach people how to think and how to be do their part in the preparation or what makes you receptive, and not even the receptivity. It's like you can't pray and just go home and sit and wait. So you can't just give an affirmation and go home and sit and wait. By repeating the affirmation, to me, there's a layer in there that something triggers in me that I have a part in this. And the more I say it and visualize it and whatever, I gotta be energized or see my part in making this happen or co-creating, and putting my energy, whatever you want to say. But you can't just say this is it and then it happens. And then if you believe something, you get in it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is what we were talking about last week. The whole episode of last week was about doubt. And if we, as you point out, if we go into the prayer doubting that it's going to happen, then what we're going to get is the doubt showing up in our life. It's because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen the way that we said that we wanted it to happen because we don't believe that it's going to unfold the way that we say we want. And that's the hidden and tricky part. And it's also the part where people get really wrapped around the axle and start saying, oh, well, it's my fault that I'm having the experience that I'm having. And on the one hand, no. And on the other hand, yeah. We're responsible for our own our own lives. We did not install all of our beliefs. They're not a result of things that we necessarily went out and said, this is what I'm choosing to believe. There is a lot of stuff that is handed to us as children that's handed us to societally. There's cyclical poverty. I grew up impoverished, and I've never been able to get out of poverty. And, we can rail against the system. We can claim, I am prosperous. But as you know, the system is also rigged to keep people who are in poverty in poverty. The people who are paying exorbitant credit card rates are the ones who don't have any money to pay off their credit cards. The ones that are getting tagged with bounce check fees are the ones who are skating right close to the edge on their checking account. The people who have plenty of money in the bank don't have to worry about those things. So it's not an issue, except at the very end of the scale, and then it's very real. And it reinforces the experience and reinforces the belief. I'll never get ahead. I'll always be poor.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're agreeing. I'm sure that we are. But there's something in there like you don't have all the information when you are at a certain economic level. You don't have it.
Yep.
So you're paying your credit cards. And this is personal, like eons, a long time ago in another lifestyle. I mean, in this life, I was because I had to correct that because people talk about past lives. I'm talking about this one. Credit cards, I didn't know how they worked. I just thought I would have good credit if I paid on time. And I would pay on time and, it wasn't working. I was paying on time. Long story short, I learned about the principle, paying against the principle, and that it comes down. So that made me structure my life a little bit differently because I had some information that I didn't have before. And paying a little bit more on the principal, all of a sudden I wasn't in debt anymore after a while, short while. So, but you need that information. I want to be out of debt. So I need to look, okay, I can affirm that I am debt free, but I'm not going to be debt free until I find out the information that will get me there. What do I have to do? It's my part in being debt free, and I'll do that.
Precisely.
And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? So
yeah. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, because there was a time in my life where I actually, I was actually unemployed at the time and had a whole bunch of credit card debt and had been living on, building up credit card debt for quite some time, and had a house with a mortgage and all this other stuff. And I did a workshop with the debt-free guru, and the instructions were, okay, we're going to take a look at this in the full light of day. So bring in all your financials to the little workshop. So we did, and we went through all the numbers, and he gave us a very simple technique. Here's how you do it. And it's not that this is the only way that you can do it. This is a way that he had found that worked. And, it said, write down, the one number is going to be, how much do you make a year? And of course, I currently wasn't working, but I wrote down the number that I intended to be making. And then worked out all the rest of the numbers with all of my credit card debt and the mortgage and the card payments and the expenses and all the rest of it. And there, right in front of me, is a plan for how to get completely out of debt for everything except the mortgage, which didn't really want to get out of debt on the mortgage. And all it required was I have a job making this much money. And I started working the program, and within weeks, I got a job. And when I was negotiating for the job, the guy says, "How much do you want to make?" And I gave him that number. He's like, "Oh." And I was actually applying. There were two of us. My partner and I were applying to be the sales team at this company. And the owner of the company says, "That's it's kind of a lot. How about if we start out for the first 90 days at 80% of that, and then we'll bump you up?" And I said, and my partner's ready to take it because he's out of work too. And because I'd been through this exercise, it's like, I said, "Do you want me to work at 80% capacity for the first 90 days? Do you want me to do like B or C level work? Or do you want me to come in and swing for the fences? He says, good point. Start at the full pay. And the whole rest of the program worked as well. So part of it was doing the preparation and doing the work and understanding what I'm going to be doing. So starting with the affirmation, I'm prosperous, I'm debt-free, or, living in this flow. Doing the work to understand what my part is going to be. And then when the invitation came along to either stand in my truth or let myself get negotiated down to 80%, it was really straightforward to say, no, this is yes, this is what's going to happen. And that's the way it worked.
You know what? I like the idea. I think it's powerful. The words that you said, stand in my truth, stand in what I believe, stand in what I want. It's, recently I'm remodeling my whole office space and all that, and I needed a chair. So I ordered the chair, and it was supposed to come the next day. And they said, after I paid for it and got everything excited, my chair's coming tomorrow. It didn't come. And I was thinking, I don't think it's coming because it's awfully late. I got a note saying it won't be here until, and it was 7 days later. And of course, I ordered it for overnight. Now it's going to be a week. And I thought, I was really bothered. And I thought, I should have just gone to Office Depot or whatever it is, Best Buy or something. I just got a chair. I'm not going to accept it when it comes. I'm going out tomorrow and I'm getting my chair, and I'm just going to, people bring it, I'm not going to accept it. Then I said, no, you're not. What you're going to do is calm yourself down and rearrange your space and do what you need to do, because the chair will be here when it gets here. And I'm thinking, I can't wait another week. I got up the next day and I thought, my chair's coming today. And I kept saying that chair is coming today. There's no reason why it shouldn't come today. And the chair came that very day. So in terms of manifesting, yeah, I bought the chair and I paid for it. There was some stuff going on in between. How do I know when the chair was going to come? I just decided it's coming today. And I'm sitting in it.
And
my
just as likely that that's going to happen as anything else.
And it's just a bunch of other things are going on like that in my world right now. And I'm thinking, you know what? I will get upset and I'll go make do. I'll just get something and make do. And I looked around and I said, my whole life is created out of make do. It's not necessarily created out of the best that the universe can give me. How about trying to manifest the best? It's not over your head. It's you. And I'm saying all that to say that we have to get in line with what we want, what we believe. Yes. I can have the best. I can also have make do if I want. I can go to the secondhand store and get a chair and make do. Is that what I want?
Yeah, and you've nailed it. If you say, I can make do, the universe says, yes. If you say, I'm going to have a new wonderful chair and it's going to get here at the perfect time, the universe says, yes. And if we believe that we're the sort of person who always has to make do, we say, I'm going to have a great chair, then you know what we wind up with. All sorts of sadness because we have to make do with another chair because the good one hasn't gotten here.
And it's a make do chair. And what you said about standing in your truth, to me, it was, well, what is your truth? Your truth has been you make do because you know how to do that. You know how to make, there was a joke about my mom. You could give her a hammer and a hammer and one nail, and she could build a house. They used to, so I used to be like that. I'm not going to sweat anything. I'll just make do. And then you look at it and say, well, I can, but I don't really want to. Can universe, spirit do better than make do? I guess so.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's asking for less. So let me bump it up a bit. Let me up the game.
And get out of your way and perhaps find out along the way that what you want and what you believe you deserve are different. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back and froth some more. Are you ready to get results? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. Are you ready to get results? RUR2GR. That's actually the abbreviation for the steps in a practical prayer. Recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release, with a couple of extra steps in there in case some doubt creeps in along the way. RUR2GR. This class is about the prayer technique that's common to all of the spiritual practices and religions in the most effective prayers that they have. And by effective, I mean that the prayer works. It actually creates a change in the experience of the person doing the prayer. It gets a result. We're going to begin with theory, and then we're going to take it into practice. By the end of the class, you will have your very own practical prayer that will help create transformation in your life.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
And we are talking about an opinion piece in the New York Times about manifesting, and that was in quotes, manifesting, and then it went into great detail on New Thought and the history of New Thought, and then pointed out what's wrong with it. How, as Carol has described, it's 2 inches deep and a mile wide, and tried to catch New Thought in the same net as manifesting. And that's the part that I bristle at and froth about. and I'm gonna be a little I'm gonna lean out over the edge a little bit, and I'm gonna say that there's no such thing as manifesting. There is no such thing as manifesting. What happens is we do a spiritual practice and come to a new place in our belief system, and the infinite creative power that creates everything responds to our new belief in the same way that it's responded to belief since the very beginning of time. And the manifestation is the infinite creating something different in our experience. We're not manifesting anything. Everything that exists is that one divine presence manifest in its own way as billions of planets and billions of people here on planet Earth, and all of the different elements and molecules and chemicals and processes and understandings and everything else. It is all the one shared in an individual way. That's what manifesting is. That's none of our business. That's what the divine does. All right, down off my soapbox.
Now, now, while you were talking, I'm listening, I'm saying, okay, all right, but now we got to come out of class and bring this down to real life. So don't take the word manifesting away from people. They got to have it.
Okay.
Manifesting, for the most part, is just showing up, right? The thing just shows up.
Right.
But I get it. It's God showing up as in this way.
Right.
So, and
What was
and
it
I'm
that Jesus said? I of myself do nothing. It's the Father within who doeth the work. I'm not manifesting.
Sure.
The divine is manifesting. He said it
And
too.
then listen, we seeing it now. Manifest is just seeing. Because you can't take seeing away from people. They're it may not be the best word, but it's the only word we have right now. But I get it. It's the one
a word
showing
that we can
up.
have. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the one showing up. Let me have my show up. I know what I'm waiting to see, but I'm waiting to see God show up in this way. But then what happens in the meantime? It means that I have to be in agreement, not necessarily mentally, but totally in a lot of ways, so that, Emmett Fox calls it the mental equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be, God in me matches the God in what's showing up.
Right.
And so,
So perhaps if instead of manifesting, we were aligning ourselves with a divine coincidence, that manifesting has an arm wrestling kind of flavor to it. Like I'm gonna struggle and work this problem, and I'm gonna manifest something. I'm gonna make it happen myself. I'm gonna muscle my way into this, and it doesn't work that way. It works by us getting into alignment with the truth of what it is that we're seeking, and allowing the infinite to create that for us. and it shows up as a coincidence.
Okay, I mean that's perfect, of course, because you're the teacher. You're gonna get it right.
No
But
pressure.
no, it is. But I have a job. My job is to make it simpler. So you talked about. So I have to get in alignment with spirit, right? But what does that mean? I understand what it means. So that therein is the work, and it's not always hard. It's just don't lose the idea, or don't skip over the idea that I must get in alignment with such and such. I mean, my chair story is only a little piece of the story. It's a whole bunch of other stuff coming. But if I don't get in alignment with my beliefs about what's going to happen, it ain't going to happen because I'm going to make do and go get some junk.
And
So
at the other end of the spectrum, you could wind up getting all that stuff and it's going to sit in boxes in the other room for 3 months while you
And-
figure
and-
out what it is that you're going to do next.
Well, I know what I'm going to do next after I finish getting pissed at all this stuff I have. But I'd have to do what you said. Anybody else that's in a situation, you put your own particulars in there. It's what do I believe? I would really like to have this. Is there any reason why I can't? Well, the first thing would be don't go out and make do, right? Leave the space empty because this is what you want. And I don't want some make do stuff in my space. I've always done make do.
Yep. You
wanna
have
try
plenty of
something
experience
different.
doing make do. You don't have to do it anymore.
Well, you know what? Sometimes people don't know that they don't have to do it anymore. But I cross the street and I'm thinking, okay, I know what make do is, all right? Now, if God is bigger than I thought, which God is, I'll leave the space empty and get my head wrapped around the better. I'm not doing make do, right? And if it doesn't happen, I'd be surprised. I'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
And the process works. And for manifesting, we a lot of times we think of it as being things. I manifested this this car, and I manifested this job, and I manifested this relationship, and we're actually manifesting everything that happens every moment. One of the founding teachers of the New Thought movement was Myrtle Fillmore, and she'd always been the sickly child. She was sick as a kid. She was sick as a young adult. She was ill. She was always ill. And she learned the New Thought teaching and the New Thought philosophy, and she realized that there's no sickness in God. And as a child of God, there was no need for sickness in her. She didn't deny that she'd been sick. She just said that this is not something that has to be part of her experience anymore. It can be part of her past, and she got healthy. I think she had back problems and maybe tuberculosis, and it all cleared up.
But from what you said and what I know, she got in alignment with the truth of what is.
There is no
And
illness in God.
right, and that's the little piece. I don't have to have less unless I want less, or I have less because that's what I've been dealing with. Sometimes I have made do, and there's nothing wrong with making do, by the way. Anybody's listening, there's nothing wrong with it.
No,
But
you've
you
done a
could put
great job of making do.
make do, but then say I'm going to do this, but only for a certain period of time, right? I'm not going to. I'll make do with this until I do that. I'm not cutting off anything that spirit may have for me. I'm just not going to chop it off because if spirit says yes, and I don't put a cap on it, then I'm going to be dealing with make do forever. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Had an interesting experience. Have family in from out of town. They're staying in Center City, Philadelphia. So we drove in from the suburbs. So we go visit them. And My wife says, as we're driving through the city and the potholes and the people and the crowds and all the rest of it, because it's the last day of the Philadelphia Flower Show. She says, why would anybody want to live here? And my 30-something daughter in the back seat says, because they like being around things to do and people. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
If you're not called to that, then don't live there. And if you're called to that in a particular part of your life and then your needs and tastes and desires change, you can move. But it's thinking,
That's
I'm
what I
here,
do.
I have to stay here, or I'm here and I can't get to where I want to be, so I have to stay out. When those are operative, then what we're going to be experiencing is either living in the right place at the right time or not being able to live in the place we want to at the time.
It's like not living as though this is it. You know, there's a flow. The river always flows. It doesn't stop. It just keeps moving. And I lived in I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and I thought that the City Hall was the most beautiful piece of architecture I had ever seen. Well, that's because I hadn't seen anything else. and you know, anyway, so I don't live in Philadelphia. I've been out of Philadelphia. And now when I go back, I kind of feel like your wife, you know, like, oh my God, did I actually live here? It was not quite the same 25 years ago. But still, I'm out. I'm in a different place, different age, obviously, and different things appeal to me now.
Right.
So,
And you didn't say what you're doing now is better. What you're doing now is appropriate for you.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
and we all
yeah.
get to create our experience, and there's you know, so many different ways of teaching this. You know, there's a reason that Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors, because they don't have the one that you like and 30 duds. You know.
I think that's a way of flowing with life, you know, and you're looking and you say, okay, this is what people like, and Baskin Robbins is a waste for me, you know, because it's only one ice cream, vanilla. That's just it. Everything else is fake. So I don't need Baskin Robbins. All I need is Breyers.
There you
But
go.
I mean, but Baskin Robbins is cool, you know. It's a nice place to meet
Right.
your girlfriend.
Baskin Robbins 30 unnecessary flavors.
Yeah, okay. So
Get
you
out of the
throw
way. I'm going to the
in,
vanilla.
yeah, that's it. And if you have vanilla bean, okay, that's even better. But I can get Breyers easier. I don't have to stand in line.
All right. We're going to take another break. And when we return, we are going to actually do a practical prayer about manifesting.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. Welcome back. I'm Carol. He's here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We're talking today about manifesting and how it diminishes and belittles the depth and tone and texture and flavor of the whole New Thought teaching and practical prayer. And curiously, that's what we're going to make the prayer about. Today's practical prayer is about manifesting. And manifesting, as is practiced in popular culture, is, you do an affirmation and you manifest something, makes it seem like we're doing it. That it's the simple process of claiming something and having it show up in our lives. Like there's some infinite catalog out there that's ready to just give us whatever it is that we ask for. And it kind of works that way, but it doesn't really work that way. The podcast and the book and the topic is practical prayer for real results. And the real results we're talking about are what people describe as manifesting. And manifesting itself is 2 inches deep and 10 miles wide. There is so much more to it than that. And this prayer is to connect with the depth and the richness and the understanding of that creative process that we're involved in, so that we can claim something that's bigger than we might have previously believed that we could experience in our life. And the difference there is that when we're doing manifesting and saying an affirmation and expecting something new to show up in our lives, it might work or it might not. And when we're ready to do the deep spiritual work and take it to the next level, then we can go beyond what we have previously believed is possible, what we've previously experienced, and have something completely new and wonderful come into our lives. To begin with, I'd like you to take a deep, full breath and hold it. And without letting it go, take another deep breath. And you can't. Try another one. It's a third one without breathing out, and you can't. What do you have to do? You have to let go. Breathe out and feel yourself become open and receptive and available to something new. That's a new thought. Now you can take in another deep breath and let yourself be filled again. And again, breathe out and release and let go of whatever has been, so that there's the possibility of something new. And continue breathing however is comfortable for you as we turn our awareness to that infinite creative power that creates everything. We want to talk about manifesting. This is a 14 billion year process of everything in the universe coming into form in exactly the way that it is right now. That's manifesting. Is it possible for it to come into form in a slightly different way to give us a different experience of life? Yes. Absolutely it is. And because it's a universe of infinite possibilities, the good that we're seeking is as possible as anything else. So as we let go of our attachment to things being the way that they have been, to doing things the way that we've been doing them, to having the limitations that have been limiting us in the past, as we open ourselves up to that newness, as we let it go, something new can come in. And perhaps that newness is the thing that we're looking for. Perhaps that newness is exactly what we wanted to have in our experience. And perhaps that newness is the awareness that we've been doing something, we've been believing something, we've been engaging in the world in a way that's bringing our previous experience in, and we get to do something different to begin with. Maybe there's something to let go of. Maybe there's someone to forgive. Maybe there is a different way of engaging in the circumstance that we've been having, and to look at it from a different perspective. And since that's possible, that's what we mean by co-creating. We are doing our part, and that infinite creative power that creates everything is saying yes. It is completely supporting that which we are desiring to the greatest degree that we believe is possible. So as we turn away from the circumstances and situations that we've been having so far, and turn our awareness to that infinite creative power that creates everything, as we understand that that power didn't just create everything out there, it created everything, including each of us. We are conscious, living, breathing expressions of the one, of that one creative power, of that divine creative process that creates everything. And as we move ourselves into alignment with that next experience, more and more and more of what we describe and understand and explain as good becomes available to us. And anything which is no longer serving us gets to fall away, as long as we are letting go of it. And the good continues to unfold, and the newness continues to express, and that infinite creative power that creates everything is manifesting as something new through and for and as and with us. And it's happening now for each of us in our own way. As we let go of what's no longer working and open to the newness, it fills our lives. Sometimes with great transformation, huge changes in the way that we are participating with the world. And sometimes it just seems like it shows up on a silver platter. And it's all good. It's all good. And I'm grateful for the willingness of each one to engage in the process, to understand that there's still something to be done. It is not I, but the Father within who doeth the work. I'm so grateful for the good that's already coming about. And I'm grateful to speak this word and release it into that creative law, the one that creates everything, and to know it is now creating this. And so with a deep feeling of thanks, I speak this word, I let it go, and I know it's so. So it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
Dozen episodes of the Practical Prayer Podcast.
You know, I'm going to play with that number after we get off. 12 times 21, 44. That's like, what do I see
44.
here? I don't know numerology or anything, but it sounds good.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a word for 12 dozen. It's a gross.
Actually, that word means something to me right now. In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
So I got a couple of comments. Regala is watching from India. And
Yes.
Ray D, so it is. Yes, indeed. So it is, Ray. And yeah, so manifesting.
Well, that was very interesting. The way you explained it, that we are not manifesting anything. And I'm still kind of tickled at saying, don't take our word from us. You know, we need that word.
Well, yeah, looking at the big picture is sometimes very helpful. And I've been teaching a class based on Living Untethered by Michael Singer. And he goes to great lengths pointing out that the universe took roughly 14 billion years to get into the condition that it's in with everything where it is. And us thinking that it's just here for us and the only tiny little fraction that we're aware of is actually important. It's like, no, there's really something much bigger that's going on. And it is possible for us to have everything that we want in our life, and the net impact on the entire manifest universe will be smaller than a rounding error.
But there's, and I know what you're talking about. I know that work because I was reading it alongside of you guys. Can't be there, but I read. And it makes me it brings me to a sense of gratitude to be a part of whatever's going on, even though I don't know what it is. I don't know the magnitude. Is just too much for me. Like some of it, I can see little stuff, and just happy to be a part of it, and to bring my stuff, whatever that is, my gifts and ideas and creativity, to whatever is being created. That feels good to me. I can't see what it is, but I know it's something. I mean, I'm not nothing. I'm a little bit of something, and it must, and I
You're
matter.
something.
I matter.
You do. We all do.
So, for me, I'm grateful to be able to polish up whatever I'm doing. So it's really, really good, because you only have a certain amount of time on earth. So whatever contribution you're making, it might be a good idea. It might feel good to make it nice. I'm reading, I'm all into the Ascended Masters, as well as some recent ones. And I just love the idea that people have brought themselves to the experience of life, and that it's appreciated 100, 200 years later.
Yeah.
That they had an idea and it was something that I can believe in and makes my life better. I love that stuff. So I hope I can leave something.
Yeah. You already have. 12 dozen episodes of the Practical Prayer Podcast and some other stuff too.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, there's some imprints you've left on this, on the world.
Well, that's a big thing. Like, that's a big thing to imagine. But if I believe that God manifests God's self through us, then, I'm a little piece of something that God is manifesting through. And very likely, maybe on the other side, when I leave, I'll look back and say, oh, that was it. Okay.
There we go.
That's pretty cool. So I have no doubt that that's probably how it kind of goes.
Yep. All right, I could continue talking about this for another 2 hours, but we're not going to. So thank you for everybody who has joined us on the Practical Prayer Podcast post-show and pre-show on New Thought Media Network. It is wonderful to have you here. This episode is going to be airing a week from Wednesday, I think, is when it drops in podcast land, after it gets back from the editing studio, where we don't really edit that much. And it has been wonderful. So thank you for letting me froth and vent, and hopefully bring something new into the world.
See you.
Have a great day.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.